That group of coworkers are discussing ghosts. Ghosts are scary, aren't they? Not for Lee Inhae. For her, no ghost could scare her as much as Kwon Silwon, who is looking at her with a malicious gaze. They were a happy couple, with plans to get married. But an accident changed their lives. What's behind this event? And why did this accident turn the once happy couple into a toxic relationship? That's what we'll see next. Lee Inhae always saw herself as a character in an RPG game, a princess-making RPG game. In her imaginary game, Inhae would be a girl who would evolve all her attributes, such as beauty, education, academic performance, and thus achieve a happy ending, where she would marry the perfect prince. But in reality, things don't work that way. Living in her little world, Inhae became socially maladjusted early in her youth. This ended up making Inhae very dependent on her grandmother, who treated her like a child, even though she was already a teenager. For example, personally picking up her granddaughter from class, as if Inhae were inept even at leaving school. This situation embarrassed Inhae in front of her classmates. After all, it was embarrassing to be treated this way in front of her classmates. More recently, as a young adult, things don't seem to have evolved much. Yes, she was a character with high attribute values. She was a high school teacher with a pleasant, innocent, and kind personality, but she was still alone and without prospects. So much so that she needs to resort to arranged dating services for a romantic relationship. And at this moment, she is talking to the service attendant. And by her side is her grandmother. And as expected, her grandmother is conducting this process, making the decisions that should only be up to Inhae. Inhae is just a passenger in the process that may end in her marriage. And so, the two find a suitable man, and they schedule a meeting between the two potential lovers. Inhae has already arrived at the meeting place, a diner. Her grandmother, naturally, is constantly monitoring her granddaughter's situation. The candidate who is coming works at a large corporation, is young, and already holds a leadership position. He is a good match, but Inhae is quite proud of her attributes as well. She might be alone today, and she might not have managed to find a relationship on her own, but none of that would matter once she got married. And she was confident that everything would work out this time. And the candidate arrives. To Inhae's surprise, this man was not a stranger, but a former schoolmate. His name was Kwon Silwon. And the confident Inhae gave way to a woman feeling uncomfortable in front of her potential romantic partner. Kwon knew that she was the isolated girl in the class. She was the girl that her grandmother would come to pick up from the classroom. Truths that Inhae could have hidden if that man were a stranger, but now it was a naked and raw truth between the two of them. So Inhae proposes that they end that meeting. She no longer thought about getting a husband. She just wanted to get away from there. But Kwon surprises her. He declares that in fact he liked Inhae in high school. Then, the situation between the two evolved very well. They would have other meetings after that one, and tonight would be special. Kwon exchanges rings with Inhae. Everything was ready for them to get married, and finally Inhae would achieve her happy ending. Still ecstatic about the good news, the couple calmly walks down the street, exchanging affection, projecting the future they would build together. But then, unexpectedly, a flash of light appears in the background. We have a time skip of a few months. At a bar table, a group of employees are having their happy hour, but they are not discussing quiet things. On the contrary. For some reason, they're talking about ghosts. And among the participants at the table are Inhae and Kwon. But unlike months ago when the two were in love, at this moment, the atmosphere is tense between them. Kwon then gets tired of that ghost talk and decides to leave, and in an imperative tone, he orders Inhae to accompany him. And the two leave the bar together, with a tense atmosphere in the air. When they were already near Kwon's apartment, Inhae asks why Kwon was treating her that way. Had she given him a reason to treat her so badly? What was happening? Finally, Inhae explodes. She was being ignored, as she had always been ignored in her life. But enough is enough. She couldn't take it anymore. It was torture. Finally, Kwon speaks to Inhae and asks, did she still love him? If she were with him, Kwon wouldn't need anything or anyone else. Inhae asked Kwon to stop. He couldn't see Inhae, nor could he hear her, because Inhae was already dead. That day, the car had hit her. And the last thing Inhae saw before she died was the sadistic laughter of that madman. Unable to be seen or heard, Inhae suffers in agony, for she cannot move on because somehow her spirit was trapped in that man's body. That ring on her hand served as a pact between her and Kwon. She couldn't remove it from her hand. And when Kwon began to move, Inhae's spirit was compelled to follow. The only way Inhae could move freely was when Kwon removed that ring. We transition to the next day. Inhae is trapped in Kwon's apartment while he prepares to go to work. But for some reason, that day, Kwon leaves his apartment without the engagement ring. Inhae was temporarily free to explore her surroundings and perhaps look for someone who could help her. But who could help her if she was invisible to everyone? Despair grips Inhae, and she begins to scream even though no one can hear her. But is it really no one? A young man complained about the noise Inhae was making. Perhaps that was a glimmer of hope? Inhae starts following the only person who could hear her pleas. However, that young man didn't seem willing to help. He refuses to assist Inhae and abandons her at his doorstep. But in another unexpected event that day, right after her plea for help was rejected by the young man, and when Inhae was already becoming depressed about her situation, a young girl arrives to visit the boy. And Inhae recognizes that girl. It was Lee Jihae, her younger sister. Jihae was Inhae's sister, 10 years younger, and the two got along very well. And now that pure girl was dating a strange boy. But not all was bad news. That boy was a shaman, and a real shaman, since he could actually communicate with Inhae, who was a spirit. And being also Inhae's brother-in-law, perhaps now he would agree to help that spirit get rid of her ex-husband. Then the young shaman clarifies that the situation Inhae was experiencing was a shaman spell. That's why she couldn't move on. And to break that spell, there were two alternatives. Either kill the shaman who cast the spell, or eliminate the object of the pact, that is, the engagement ring. Killing would be impossible for Inhae, since she was an ethereal body, and no one would kill a human being to help a ghost. Confiscating the engagement ring, however, seemed to be a viable alternative. Inhae then finally shows confidence and devises a plan. She knew that Kwon would only return home in 1 hour, and that would be enough time for those young people to enter the apartment and steal the ring. So the three head to Kwon's apartment. However, the young shaman soon realized that something was wrong. The building seemed to be protected by spiritual barriers, and these barriers seemed to target both spirits and shamans. In other words, neither Inhae nor the shaman could get close to the apartment. But Jihae could easily break into the apartment, and with the advantage that she was Kwon's sister-in-law. So she could deflect suspicion from her intentions by claiming that she was looking for some object belonging to her deceased sister. Then Inhae questioned the young shaman about why he had let Jihae into the apartment alone. Yes, she had an excuse to break in, but Kwon was a murderer and could go to extremes if he wanted to. Then the young shaman made some considerations. The first was that it was all a plan to turn Inhae into a bound spirit. The second was that Jihae was a capable person and would succeed in that endeavor. Inhae again objects, saying that Jihae was a naive young woman and therefore susceptible to Kwon's schemes. The young shaman then laughs at the statement that Jihae was naive. He says that perhaps Inhae didn't really know her sister, which makes her uncomfortable. Then the shaman leaves the car to buy a pie, as Jihae had asked. Inhae then begins to feel the attraction promoted by the ring. Now she was sure Kwon was already in the apartment, and Jihae was in trouble. Inhae loses consciousness and is then transported inside the apartment. However, inside, she encounters a situation that she doesn't quite understand. Jihae was having an intimate moment with Kwon. What could be happening?